Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Charlas y Chismes con nuestros legisladores. Today, we are charlando con Representative Barbara Hernández. My name is Jesus Alquicira, and I'm proud to be an ILCF, ILCF alumni. I'm a past scholarship recipient, and I'm also the chair of the Alumni Association Communications Committee. It's a pleasure to see everyone here today. But before we begin, here's a few quick reminders. Please keep your microphones muted unless speaking. Stay engaged and feel free to take notes as the meeting progresses. Audience questions will be welcome at the end. Please be respectful of the speakers and one another. And we hope that today inspires you and helps you to see your own path in law, policy, and public service. With that, I am honored and introduce our moderator for today's conversation, Elizabeth Villarreal.
Thank you, Jesus. Good afternoon, everyone. Like you said, my name is Liz Villarreal, and it's a truly an honor and privilege to be leading this conversation today. It's part of the Charlas y Chismes con Nuestros Legisladores series. This series was created with a simple but powerful purpose to bring our community closer to the people shaping policy in Illinois, to create space for real stories, real questions, and deeper understandings of how decisions are made in Springfield and how they show up in our lives and the lives of our families of every day. Today, we are joined by Representative Barbara Hernández, a leader whose journey reflects resilience, service, and deep community commitment. She was born and raised in Aurora, Illinois. Representative Hernandez is the daughter of first-generation immigrants. Her story reflects sacrifice, perseverance, and opportunity rooted in a lifelong commitment to giving back. She graduated from East Aurora High School, attended Wabanzi Community College, and earned her degree from Aurora University, later completing her master's in public administration in 2021. Even before elected office, she was already creating impact. In 2012, she founded the Job Opportunities Facebook group, a grassroots effort that has grown into a network of more than 5,000 people helping one another find work and opportunity. In 2016, she made history as the youngest elected Kane County board member at just 24. And in 2019, she became one of the youngest members of the Illinois General Assembly at the time she was sworn in, and widely recognized as one of the youngest Latinas serving in the Illinois House. She continues to bring the same energy, urgency, and deep connection to community into her role as representative for the 50th District. She now serves as a chair of Immigration, Human Rights Committee, and works across education, public safety, transportation, and more, always centering the voices of communities she represents. Representative Hernandez, it is truly an honor to have this conversation with you today. So
Thank you for having me.
No, this is wonderful. You're bringing the energy that we need. You have done so much, and I can imagine what of that is, the weight of that lies on your shoulders, right? So I want to touch a little bit on your personal journey and your leadership. Before public office, what shaped your purpose or sense of purpose and direction?
Honestly, I would say my family. I would say my family and my community. So, as you mentioned, I'm first generation. So, my family came to this country on Memorial Day. So, not knowing any, like the language, not knowing a lot of things about this country. And I think we all had to navigate it on our own together. But it was hard. It was hard to just go through all these obstacles that we had to go through, like financial, emotional, sometimes also physical. My dad and my mom didn't have health care growing up because they were undocumented. They were undocumented, and of course, they didn't have a stable job. So it was very hard for them, and they didn't get to see their family for 21 years. So imagine just not being able to be with family member for 21 years. You missed a lot of parties, a lot of graduations, a lot of just celebrations and getting to know each other. Like I didn't get to know my cousins until I was in my teenage years. And even then, now it's a little hard because I know I have family, but I still feel somewhat disconnected because I never really grew up with them. And there was not like all these media sources that we have now to be able to stay in touch with them. So that was very hard also.
So I know you shared with me that you were the oldest, right? So what
Mhm.
did that mean for you, being the oldest, having parents that were new to this country? What did that mean for you?
Well, it was a lot of responsibility for sure. My brother's 5 years younger than me, and as the oldest, I felt like I had to translate everywhere. We were going like doctor's appointments, school, everything. I had to translate, but I also had to be the one to pay attention to every little detail and where we were, so we know how to get back home, or just overall like know how to get back to this appointment, doctor's appointment. My mom didn't know how to drive until later on in her life, and so for the most part, we would use public transportation. So Pace Bus was a big part of like our lives, or we would walk everywhere. But that, of course, took a lot of effort, a lot of getting to know the system and remembering how to get back home, what number bus you had to get to
Hmm.
make sure and read the schedule and everything. So it was hard, but there's a lot of responsibilities. But I know that there's also still a lot of pressure. Don't get me wrong, just because I'm older now, that doesn't mean the pressure just goes away. The pressure's still there. I don't think it is as much as it used to be, because I think my parents have seen that they did their job and I'm grown up now, and they hope that I can be a good person in the community and good person and that to represent the family. And I would like to say I am. But it's always hard to navigate with being still the oldest and having to now take different approaches to life. Like before, it was like, hey, let me translate all these items for you, so to make sure you know what's going on. But now it's also like me pressuring my parents to, hey, let's talk about what's going to happen after you're gone. Like you're getting to that age. Like let's talk about life insurance. Let's talk about wills. Let's make sure that if you want to leave the house to someone, it's properly done legally. It's not just let me put this person's name and it's going to go to you. Like let's make sure we find ways that there's not a lot of taxes involved and navigate that legal system. And I feel like my parents are still that typical Latino parents. Like when I
Hmm.
told them about this, they're like, "Ya me quieres matar?" And I was just like, "No, but we need to have this conversation." Like we really
Right.
do, because I don't want to. I've seen a lot of my friends, a lot of the family members that don't do this, and unfortunately are left um, navigating the system on their own and trying to figure out where's the passwords, where's the documents, where's everything. And the last thing you want to do when someone you love is gone is worry about all the paperwork that you need to do.
Right.
So that is my now responsibility of as an older child, trying to make sure that it's they're ready and set to whenever something happens, but also making my life easier to identify where everything else is too.
Okay. So looking back on that experience and what you shared, how has that shaped your leadership style? And was that one of the reasons, or was that something that you decided, you know what, I want to run for office?
No, well, the reason why I ran for office is pretty much because like I saw a gap in my community, but I also saw that my family was had a lot of obstacles. They were struggling in many ways because they were first generation. And I noticed that my family wasn't the only one in
Mhm.
the area that were in the same path. So I started to get involved, started to volunteer, and that's how I kind of started going into politics, right? And now I feel like it's an opportunity that I have to be able to represent the community that I was born and raised to and be able to assist as many people as possible. But of course, with that comes a lot of responsibilities too, right? And it comes with a lot of pressures. So it's not only family pressures, but now it's community pressures. How can I make sure that I represent effectively and responsibly to 108,000 people in my district? How can I make sure that I change the term politician? Because I don't like that term. I consider myself a public servant. How can I change that definition of politician and make it more positive? Make sure that I change that environment for political individuals that want to get into the field, making sure that there's a path for young women to be able to go into politics and be taken seriously. How can I make sure that they're respected? Because that's another big component. Unfortunately, there's a lot of sexual harassment, as we've seen in the news recently, especially in the federal government. There's still also some in the state and local levels, but how can we make sure that it's a safe environment for those individuals that want to be in politics too?
So would you consider yourself a servant leader?
Yes, a servant leader, a public servant. That's what I would consider myself. If I usually, whenever I talk to students and they don't know what a representative is, what a public servant is, I do just kind of give up a little bit and say, I'm a politician. And they're like, oh, I was like, yes, but I don't relate to a politician because I do want to seem a lot more approachable than other elected
Right.
officials that I've seen. So that's always been my goal, like making sure I'm there, people can see me. People see me walking around in the streets, getting groceries, getting food, do whatever I need to do. I just want them to see me as a human and not as a political robot. And I think that's very important because I think a lot of people forget that. And
Yes.
there's some individuals that might idolize and like look up to us. Um, but I also want them to understand like I'm human too. I can make mistakes. I still need my time. I still need a break once in a while. I still have a family that depends on me and wants to see me once in a while. So I might say no to certain things that for events and so on. But I do try my best to be out there in the community too.
And I appreciate that you let everyone know you're human. I think we do forget that, right? I think it's our fault where we may hold people on a pedestal and we forget that you encounter the same exact things that we encounter, that you go through the same exact things that we go through. And I think we as a collective have to understand and realize that you're doing the best that you can do to make sure that our lives are better. But we as constituents, as community, should also reach out and say, hey, how can we support you in the work that you do? Because I think that's the only way we can get this work done, right? Collectively.
I agree. Yeah, and that's unfortunately it doesn't happen as often. I think a lot of people just say, oh, they're going to take care of it. The General Assembly that's their responsibility. And yes, it is our job, but we still need support. Like if I have 500 people saying, "Hey, oppose this," but I only have two people saying, "Hey, don't ruin this, don't like eliminate this program," then I'm unfortunately going to probably hear to the 500 people because they're the ones saying the most noise, right? So if more people were involved and more people were telling us like hey, this is how you should see this, or let me give you some pointers, advice, or well, invite me to your hospital so I can see what the hospital is or whatever the industry may be. Like that helps a lot, and we need to see more Latinos in these fields too. So I hope that I'm very happy all the time when I see Latinos in Springfield because that's when I'm like, okay, they're finally coming in. They're learning the political process. They're learning how bills and laws are made here in Illinois, and we need more of that because if we don't, other people will make the decisions for us, and we don't want that.
That's right. And I have to, because you brought up Springfield right now, for those of you that are not aware, next week, Latino Unity Day, May 5th through the 6th. You can go to the Latino Policy Forum, but I mean, the first time I went, for me, it was eye-opening, right? Because you see everything, you get to go to the Capitol, and that's when people can really come and connect. And if you're a constituent, connect with your local
Right.
representative and senator and get to know everyone. I think it's a beautiful place for people to collectively grow and become community. So
Yes.
I just had to plug that in.
No, and
So I
I'm
want to
excited for that. It's always a great time and place to just like see everybody and see the constituents, and it's a little way to showcase what we also do and what we're working on. So it's great.
And it's a good time if look up the Latino Policy Forum if you haven't. There's still time. But I would really interest me, and I want to get back to your community roots and the things you did early on. What inspired you to create a job opportunities Facebook group?
So I started to see that a lot of people were looking for jobs, but didn't know exactly where to look for. And this was a little bit before like LinkedIn and like other Indeed and so on. They were still there, but people just didn't know how to navigate those. And some people really just wanted in on like right in front of them. So I saw, let me just create this job opportunity page on social media, get some people involved. People can post local job opportunities there. And I can share also little things that I find because a lot of people were also asking me, it's like, hey, how can I find a job for nursing or receptionist? And it was really hard for some people to look into like what's in the area. And we have two hospitals in the district. So there's opportunities out there, but they just didn't know how to navigate. And unfortunately, at some point, like some people didn't know how to Google, right? So it's something simple that we use all the time, but for some people, it's a little harder. So especially for social media, it was a little bit maybe better to navigate, and they could just click that link that I would post, and the job, I guess the job posting would just be right in front of them, and they can apply from there, or at least see what the requirements are.
Did you imagine that it would grow into what it is today with thousands of people supporting each other?
No, no. And I know that many still look at it and we always post as much. I know now there's a lot more like spam that they're trying to do. So I always make sure to maintain like less spam as possible. But it's always great to see other people use that as a way to show their small business if they're having like a hiring process or there's a career fair in the university that people post it there to start sharing and bring awareness to people.
Because I Facebook groups are phenomenal. Um, and I always think like mujeres latinas de comadres, corremos la voz, we let each other know. But what
Right.
I'm also interested in is how has the grassroots experience shaped your approach to public service?
For me, I mean, it means a lot. Everything we've done is really grassroots. And to be honest, like when I first ran for office, I was 18 for like a small position, precinct committeeman. And then I tried running for township trustee and I lost by 10 votes. And that was really, really grassroots where I mean, knocking on doors is the secret to winning. If you knock as many doors, you talk to people, you message properly, you have a good a chance to win, right? And that's the thing, like getting people to help you and volunteer and walk with you is really important. But it taught me a lot because it taught me how to mobilize, how to bring people together, how to talk to people on certain levels because you can't talk to people in like a corporate voice all the time for your community because some of them might not be aware of certain terminology or approach. So you always have to make sure that you're speaking, whenever you're speaking, you adjust what you're going to say to each individual, right? And grassroots, they're very passionate, very they just want to fix a certain issue. And right now I know it's ICE, it's the No Kings Day. And that's something that people really want to get together and fight for, right? To make sure that their community is safe. So it's great to see. It's great to see people walking in the streets with their yard signs, with their like very creative signs that they have, and just be able to be all on the same page, saying, "Hey, we all feel that this is wrong and we want to change it." And it's always great to have that opportunity because I feel like before this, there wasn't as much activity as it is now. I think now it's a common thing of every so often, every month, or we have a No King's Day, so which is great to see in our community.
I couldn't help when you were talking about grassroots, and I think all Mexicanos would know this. When you're organizing a quinceañera, to a certain level, it's grassroots, right? Because you have to approach people to be padrinos, madrinas.
Right.
You have to organize everything, and depending on who you're talking to, that's how you adapt it to. I mean, but you think about it, it's already innate in us. It's already something we know how to do, but it's just honing it in. And I do have a
Right.
quick question. Adela wants to know, how can we stay proactive, not reactive, create unity and
I
be
think a
diplomatic?
great way. Yeah, no, I think the thing is like we need to keep each other accountable, right? I think that's one of the things that I've keep seeing. Like we need to keep each other accountable, but also keep people that we elect accountable. When I say keep people accountable, I've seen a lot of people that are very, very rowdy, sharing information, misinformation. They think they're doing like a productive conversation or information, but in reality, it's like hurting the community, right? Because it's feeding into that hate, it's feeding into that stigma. And what we need to do is, as individuals, is keep each other accountable and say, hey, like this is not going to help the cause. Like tone it down, or hey, don't do wheelies in the street. That it's going to stop the protests, stay on the sidewalk, whatever we need to do. Like those certain things, like we can keep people accountable and make sure that our messaging is still strong and is still there. We've seen it with here, at least in Aurora, with a couple of students that were walking out. Unfortunately, it got very nasty towards the end, and you guys probably saw that in the news where students
Mhm.
were getting tackled by APD and other officers. But unfortunately, like there was both sides. And talking to the students, they're like, I was disappointed in my classmates and I was disappointed in APD. So it's like they were both just trying to figure it out how to process everything, but at the same time, like things could have been prevented. And I told the students, like, keep your classmates accountable. If you see someone throwing things at cars or throwing like gang signs or throwing or going in the street, like make sure you keep them accountable. Say, hey, you guys, like I don't want to get in trouble. Let's stay on the sidewalk. Don't do this, don't do that, to make sure. I think that's one of the things that we can do, but also making sure that people know that protesting, yes, it is a way of voicing your concerns, but also making sure they go out and vote. They are registered to vote if they can. Go out and vote if you're able to. I know there's a lot of people that didn't vote last year because they were protesting on the candidates. I understand that. However, because of that, we lost a lot of votes. And now we
Yeah.
are stuck also in the position we are, because people are like, oh, I don't like both the candidates, so I'm not going to vote. It's like, no, that's not the solution. And like, please go and vote and make sure you keep them accountable. If you didn't like Kamala Harris or whoever it might have been, like you keep them accountable and say, hey, like message them, email them. And you're able to do this. Like they get messages. I get messages. Email me saying, hey, why are you voting for this? What, like, tell me like how you feel, because it really does help overall, like keep me accountable and say, okay, they're paying attention. Let me make sure I keep an extra focus on this specific bill that is hurting my community, or I'm able to voice your concerns to that stakeholder group and say, hey, my community wants this change. And it's because if not, it's going to hurt them in this way. So that helps me a lot too.
So you touched on something, and I want to attach it to a question that was asked because I think it's relevant. What does it mean to work in public service in our current time? How have you been, how are you seeing that at the local level? So how has that impacted? Let's be very honest. What's happening at the federal level is coming to us. So how has it changed your job now?
It's honestly a little bit more hectic. I used to, I, because I'm in government, I used to pay attention to federal lightly here and there, the city lightly here and there. But now I feel like I need to focus so much on federal government stuff, even though I'm not federal at all, just so I know what exactly is happening and what potentially might change certain things that we have to do, right? Like with today's May 1st.
Hmm.
Starting today, there might be 150,000 individuals that might lose their SNAP benefits. So making sure before this, I was making sure that I talked to people, that I did a PCA video to make sure people were aware of these changes, that people know the resources. Like that's something that maybe in the past I wouldn't have to do, but now the federal government did something. Now we're changing certain things in the state too. And even the way that we legislate and govern in Illinois, we have taken a different approach. Before, we would expect the federal government to do networks with, let's say, other countries across the world, right? To establish a peace treaty or do a company sale. But now we're seeing a lot more of like Illinois as a state making those conversations, making those negotiations as a state, not as a federal country, like federal government, just as a state. So the Latino caucus, like we Latino caucus members were able to go to Spain in December. We were having those conversations with Spain, with the country, and with Madrid specifically, right? And those are some things that we've had to do and navigate because clearly our federal government is not doing that anymore.
Mm.
And they don't have the greatest relationship. So we're still trying to establish different relationships with different places in the world to make sure that we can bring those resources, those opportunities back to our state. And that's something that, like I said, we might have not had to do before, but now we have to take a different approach.
So it leads me to think, now with the internet is a global society, everything can be accessed easily. And I know you, right now with what's happening with ICE and immigrant families and interacting with public institutions, like they want to access the data. How and what does it take to rebuild the trust between policies like the Trust Act and the immigrant population?
I think it's going to be very hard to repair certain relationships. I've seen it here in my community, locally, the community and the cops with the officers, because a lot of people don't they they um they see as officers as something that they can talk to ICE and say, hey, stop this, or they're breaking the rules, or they're going through speeding traffic lights. Like the APD can go in after them and stop them and give them an infraction. And there's so many things that unfortunately like our local police departments can't do. So I think a lot of people they already see them as a negative person, as a like the bad guys in our local government. And it's unfortunate because in reality, like we tied their hands. Like the state said, hey, and during the Trust Act, like you can't work with ICE, you can't work with anyone, like so you just have to sit there. Right, because we were hoping that this would be building trust amongst the community, but however, we're seeing a little bit of both sides, right? It is building trust because if you do have an emergency, you can call 911 and without fear of getting deported. But now we're also seeing when ICE comes in and you call 911 for assistance because you're about to get deported, they can't do anything. So that's where people are kind of like, well, why are you there? Why are APD there if they can't even come and help me? They can just sit there and watch. So I think overall in the government, we're going to have to do a lot of reparations in the next few years to see how we can bring the community together and also see what's going to legally happen. I can see in the next few years that maybe there might be an investigation of cases and share stories of what happened across the country. I know in Illinois we're already doing that now, and seeing like all the videotapes and making sure we build a case that when we can prosecute all these officers that broke the laws and the ICE officers, like we have the proof, we can make a case and be able to litigate on that too. And hopefully that can cause some peace for a few families that there are going to be responsible for. But right now, I think a lot of people are disappointed because they see a lot of the laws being broken and no accountability towards anyone.
So it almost feels like Illinois is like leading the way in some things. And how should Illinois define the balance between public safety and protecting human dignity?
I think that's been hard lately, only because depending who you ask, depending who they represent and what area, like you might get a different answer, right? For many people, it's public safety is number one. And others, it's like, no, human rights it's a number one, or it might be a little bit of both. And I think right now, as the chair of human rights and immigration, like it's a very tough spot because we get to see a little bit of everything and we see different policies that are helping people, but also hurting people. And how can we make sure that we're having those conversations and making sure that we have both sides in mind, and legislate is a little harder to do because of that.
Now, something too that I think everyone thinks about is data privacy and community sa and safety, right? For many immigrants, even sharing personal information can feel very risky. You're filling out an application for something. How do you balance protecting privacy with ensuring access to services?
That's also difficult because I feel like at the end of the day, like some people might, even if I tell them 100 times, like, hey, we're not using your information to give to anyone else, like they're still hesitant. They're still very hesitant in many ways, and I understand there's a lot of things going on. Like they shouldn't trust anyone, right? But unfortunately, like there's certain things that we do want to give them resources for. We want to provide help. And we just need the basic information. Like I'm not asking for social security, I'm not asking for anything, just name, phone number, and maybe address. And people are very hesitant to do so. So we're trying to find ways. How can we communicate? How can we make sure that people's privacy is still intact? Not only for our immigrant population, but for everyone. We've done bills in the past with that relates to like license plate readers. And when we first did this was mainly for those that were coming into Illinois to get an abortion and making sure that once they left Illinois and once they were in Illinois, they weren't going to get tracked. That if they went back to Texas, they wouldn't get tracked and say, hey, we saw that you went in Illinois and you actually turned here where Planned Parenthood is. Like we made sure that that wasn't, they couldn't track them. But on top of that, we also add protections for undocumented families for with license plate readers too. So that's another thing that we were able to add. Another bill that I was able to do is a drone bill. So after what happened with Highland Park on Independence Day a couple years ago, there was a gap on drones. There was a gap on drones that where police officers couldn't use drones to survey a area or even use it for like missing persons or anything. So we had to change the law, and I was able to change the law for that purpose to be able to use drones, but only a few people. So it's not like everyone, and there's specific guardrails for the use of drones. So they can only use it in a city or state festival if there's someone's missing, endangered, or but also they need to make sure that they erase all the videotape in like 24 to 48 hours. There's no facial recognition. Part of it is also like no facial recognition software, no weapons on the drones. And if there is something that happens and then we can keep the recording for evidence purposes for a certain amount of days, I think 60 to 90 days. But as a community, also making sure that there was guardrails that they're not coming to your neighborhood, recording your quinceañera or your family cookout outside, making sure that there was a notice posted 24 hours in advance of a location that was going to be surveyed by drones, making sure that you're aware that before going into this festival that you're about to walk into something that has drones that will be using recording for that moment. So if you have an option to say, you know what, I don't feel safe, I don't want this, I'm walking back and not going to the festival, or it's up to you. So we made a lot of protections because of that. And that's safety for everyone. But I know there was a lot of families that were concerned that we were going to use these drones. And I know the federal government might be using those drones illegally, but at least here in statewide, we were making sure that the privacy was the number one component to this bill.
So you're really, from what I'm understanding, you're really trying to make Illinois a place where it's truly safe for the immigrant communities, not just
So welcome.
talking
Yeah.
about it, but
The
actually
state
doing
is
it.
right. Yeah, and the state is a sanctuary state, so we were able to pass that a couple of years ago too.
I didn't know about that, so that's good to know. It's good to be maintained and informed. You did touch earlier
Yeah.
about access. Today is the May 1st, where people will be losing access to public benefits. Um, and public benefits are very essential and can be life-changing for families, right? So how do you balance compassion, responsibility, and policy design when expanding eligibility?
I think so. All the things that I've done and legislated on, it's been because of experiences. It's been experiences, or either me personally or from family members or friends that I've seen, or whenever I talk to constituents and they tell me their story. So that's pretty much how I legislate and create certain bills and support bills. I think it's really hard right now because I will say I'm a crybaby. I cry for many things. I'm very empathetic. I'm very sympathetic, and it's easy for me to cry, right? So when I hear someone, a constituent comes in and tells me their story, it's very hard for me to navigate those emotions, to not cry, because I feel like at that moment they need someone strong and like listening. And if I cry with them, like we might not stop for many, many hours. But it's very important that they also see that I do care about them. I do care about the story that they're sharing, and make sure that their voice is heard. And I bring those experiences and stories back with me to Springfield and say, hey, especially when we're working on a bill, I can debate and say, hey, this is going to help X, Y, and Z. And I just met this person over the weekend that told me this was going to happen to them unless we change this. So like it brings clarity, but it is hard to navigate those emotions and be able to legislate with a clear mind, because it's very easy to let your emotions navigate what you want to do in the work. And it's hard to not control them, but I feel like I have to control it, because if I react with emotions, I'm gonna get disappointed. I am gonna get disappointed because unfortunately, how I've seen government lately and how I've seen government overall in Illinois, like we do work very slow. We work extremely slow. And even if it's a great idea, like someone might think this is um, a very easy bill. It makes common sense. But when we bring it back to all the colleagues, they're gonna rip it apart and say, actually, this idea sounds great. However, you have to think about X and Y and Z and all these components, all these stakeholders, and the bill will be a lot more complicated than it is. And because of that, it might, instead of something that I thought was going to take me a couple months to pass, it might take me 4 or 5 years to pass and to see the effect of it too. So it's hard to navigate that too.
Crying is not such a bad thing. I wish people would stop looking at it as a weakness. To me, it says that, you know what, you're seeing me as a human being, you're connecting
Right.
with me, you relate, you see me, you understand what I'm going through. Being empathetic and compassionate is very important,
Yeah.
because that validates the person and says, you know what, they see me, they understand it. And I think that drives your passion to do what you need to do. But if more people start to think like you, if there's more ripples that you create, eventually what is there is going to have to break down, and hopefully things will start moving in a different direction. We have to maintain hope, because if not, then
Right.
what's all this work for, right? But I want to ask
Mhm.
you, was there one story of a family that you can remember that really shaped how you thought about safety nets and public support as you're looking at to access to public benefits?
Yes. And this is where I'm going to start crying.
Oh,
That's why I was like, oh no, I saw the question coming. Um, but no, yes, I've seen a lot of people like throughout the last 7 years that I've done this job. And um, it's easy for you to get kind of lost in the whole system because you're always running around. You're like you have a goal. But then when someone stops you in the middle of the Capitol and says, oh, you're Representative Hernandez. And it's like, oh, hey, yes, yes, that's me. And they're like, hey, I just want to thank you because of you, I now have a driver license that I can drive everywhere. without the purple line that shows that I was undocumented. That's
Okay, just breathe
that's
it.
great.
Yeah.
It's great because, like I said, my family was undocumented for 21 years, and my parents could not get a driver license for 21 years. So they had to figure it out, navigate on their own. And for me, and I will say, like the representative that had that bill back and like voted no on it a couple years ago, 2004, when it first came out, that was the representative who I replaced.
Oh, wow.
So many years after, I got to carry that bill. And it wasn't that she voted no because she just wanted to vote no. It was Aurora was a different environment back then. It was really conservative. It was moderate. So she had to vote no in that time frame in 2004. But now it's a full circle that I was able to carry that bill and be able to vote yes. So for me, it meant a lot. For the families, meant a lot. Now I get told that the families are able to get a bank account with that ID, with that driver license. They're able to drive with a fear. They can get their medications. They can get a house because before they didn't have a proper identification because the driver license that they had previously would say on the bottom, like, not allowed for identification. So if you had a jerk that didn't want to consider it and not give you the benefit of the doubt, they would just say no, like, this is not real ID. And it's unfortunate. And now they can have access. So that's one of the stories that I know gets me through everything because I know that it makes a difference. And even though at that moment I didn't remember that it was going to make a difference, like that person took their time to thank me and just say, hey, like, because of you, I have this and my family is going to be a little bit better off because I'm able to go work without having fear, and I'm able to drive, and they're going to learn how to drive. And all these stuff, like, it was a domino effect for them. But also, like, just seeing the kids' eyes when they see you, like, it's a glossy, like it's they see you as like a bright and new shiny toy, like very excited to know you, get to know you, talk to you, take a picture with you. And like looking at their eyes, I'm just like, wow, like that person, like, I guess I mean that much to them, but in reality I'm just like, wow, that's a lot of pressure on me to continue the work that I'm doing and make sure that they have someone that they feel proud to have representing them. And I also see the impact of the children and how motivated they are to try and get involved. And I can see, hopefully, and the next state representative in the next few years whenever I see children too.
And you know why it's so important, children? Because it's representation, right? Because when they see you, they see themselves. And that makes a world of a difference, right? It's like when the movie Coco came out, it was life-changing for a lot of Latinos and Latinas because for the
Right.
first time we saw ourselves, and even Encanto, where we don't see ourselves. So that's why it's so important. When the young people see you, they see, oh my God, if she did it, I can do it. And the driver's license, it's very important because in this world, when you don't have an identification, you don't exist. But now with that identification, they exist. So those
Yeah.
are really important things that we don't think about and we can take for granted. So thank you for the work that you're doing and the work that you're continuing to do. Another area, I'm going to jump into workforce and inclusion, language. As I'm doing my dissertation work, language is a huge barrier, right? Language
Right.
access is often the first and the last barrier for many families. What does true language equity look like in Illinois today?
I think we've done a lot of improvements, and I will say that my colleague Representative Dagmar Avelar has taken the wheel on this, and she's been amazing with it. We are trying to increase language access across the space, across like hospitals, schools, different industries that you might not get to see it as often, but because of these laws that she's been able to create and I've been able to support and voted for, like now we have those iPads in the hospitals where there's a live translation, which is great. Like it's needed. And I got to see it, and I would always text her. I'm like, hey, I just saw it. It's so super cool. Like, thanks for doing this. Because now people like me and kids like that were we're translating, they don't really have to translate now because these new technology. But I know that now something that we're trying to target more is making sure that there is bilingual pay. Right? A lot of people in the jobs, they just take us for granted, like, oh, you're bilingual. Cool. You can help me with translate everything. And that's a lot of pressure, especially if you're the only Latino or Latina in that workforce, and then everybody relies on you to translate everything. That's a lot of pressure. And it's not fair because then you should get bilingual pay. You should get paid extra for that service. So that's something that I know in the state we're having those conversations. We're trying to make sure people are aware of what we're trying to get, what the policy that we're trying to put out there, making sure that we increase that language access. That's very important. My family, I mean, my mom still doesn't know English pretty well, but my dad, he does his Duolingo every day and tries to make sure he's on top of it, but it was hard for them. I honestly sometimes joke that I don't understand how they didn't give me the wrong medication when I was younger if they didn't know how to read the label, right? Like I was like, I'm glad I made it to 33 so far, without them knowing what medication to give me or anything. So, but it is something that I wish that we could fix quicker because it's a lot of people need it, and I'm hoping that in Illinois we're going towards the right path towards that.
Well, I appreciate it. I wish that would have been around. I worked at a hospital, and I'm not going to say the name, but I was the only Spanish speaking person there, and I had to help out everyone, and that was not part of my job. And when I did approach the manager of that area, but he told me if you don't like it, then find another job. And they don't see it as a skill set, right? It's not easy translating. It's not easy doing your workload plus doing the workload of the other people because they can't speak the language. So
Right.
I appreciate that. So I do want to jump in around in some questions because I really want to make time for this because I think it's important as someone that has experienced her health change within a blink of an eye for me. That was a life-changing moment. And I know for you was in 2012. Many of the women in this world and this webinar are leading at work, leading at home, leading in their communities, and quietly carrying health concerns that they don't talk about. As both a
Right.
legislator working on health equity and a Latina who knows this personally from your own experience, what's your message to us about protecting our health while you're still doing this work?
I would say put boundaries. Put boundaries. Make sure that you listen to your body too. So in 2022, just a couple of years ago, I was 29, suffered a stroke, and I was in Springfield. I was in the capital. I had just presented one of my bills, and then like 2 minutes after, I had a stroke. And I didn't understand what was going on. It started with a headache, and I started to kind of lose my vision. So that I knew immediately something was wrong. I went back in the break room because I was like, oh, maybe I just need water. I was like doing all those checks, all the checks and balances in my life. I was just like, did I drink water? Did I eat today? Did I take a break? Like I was just making sure everything I was doing was good. And then all of a sudden I was like, no, I started losing my vision. I'm like, something's wrong. I'm like, I need help. So I called one of my colleagues and I was like, hey, can you please come and help me? And from there, they're like, hey, we can send you to the hospital. And the hospital's like 5 minutes away. I was like, okay, cool. So went to the hospital, and that's when I think it hit even more. The doctors kept asking me questions and I just couldn't really talk to them about it. Like I just couldn't put it together. I was like, my head hurts. And like, I was just very slow in my speech. I was just like trying to process it. And it was very difficult for me. And then afterwards, they did some tests and they're like, hey, you had a stroke. And I was just like clueless. I knew what a stroke was, but I was like, wait, how? Why? Like, am I okay? And then they're like, well, we can check and see what's going on. And eventually, the third day of me being in the hospital, they said, hey, you need surgery. So I had brain surgery. I lasted in the hospital for 10 days. And the surgery was successful. Um, and I'm just very lucky to, one, be alive, two, that I was able to recover as quick as I did. Uh, However, it really brought um, a different perspective of life, of health, of my boundaries of my job, because this job can be very stressful. And as I mentioned, people think of me as a robot, and as a non-human, just someone that can work 48 hours or more and be okay. And that's not true. I noticed that right away. My body was telling me, hey, take it slow. And ever since then, I have taken it slow enough, not slow, but slow enough, where on the weekends I do try to make more time for myself. I give my more, I say no more um, to people that and to organizations and events that I just feel like I can't do certain things at a certain time. So I just try to take myself a little bit of a break. And I usually in the past, I would sit in the couch, watch TV, but still was working and doing emails. So now I'm after a certain time, I'm like, no, let me put the laptop away. Let me watch Netflix and just relax and not do anything else. And trust me, it's hard. It's hard because people don't really understand. They take offense to it, but that's okay because at the end of the day, that means they don't understand the struggle and they need also balance of their own life. And I had someone that when I was getting my master's was like, hey, we have an event that we really want you to attend. And I was like, no, I can't. I'm sorry, I can't attend your event. I'm graduating. I'm graduating with my master's. I'm walking the stage. And they were like, oh, just come by for like 20 minutes. Just stop by. I'm like, no, I can't. Like, I'm gonna be rushed. Like, I can't. I'm sorry. Like, this is one event that I can't. And the person was not understanding, was not like listening to me. And I ended up having to go for like 10, 20 minutes, dressed up in my gown, ready to go walk because I really was just gonna park and like run to the stage. And it was unfortunate because I was like, I'm asking you to give me some leeway. I'm asking you to give me some, like, this is me. This is not me attending someone's graduation. This is me graduating. Like, this is a personal accomplishment that I've worked really hard and put a lot of money into it. Like, please respect that. And they wouldn't. And that's when I noticed, like, to you, I'm not a human. To you, I'm just someone that you want in your event. And it was really hard. So I hope that people here take time. Self-care is important. Make sure you can, it's okay to say no. If people don't understand, that's on them. But you have to make it clear, like, hey, I'm sorry, I can't help you right now. I'm going through something. Give me an hour. I'll come back to you. And that's fine. I feel like you have to over communicate to people and make sure at the end of the day you're safe because if you're the oldest, if you're the breadwinner of your household and something happens to you, who else is going to help your community or who else is going to help your family? And I learned that the hard way, but now I know that in order to help others, I have to help myself first,
Yeah,
health-wise.
it's true. And
Yeah.
it's hard, right? Because our community teaches us differently. And it's like when you get on an airplane, if the cabin pressure should drop, the mass fall, if you're traveling with someone, please put it first on yourself, and we forget. And I
Yeah.
think it's when you have an experience like this, and I can relate, although it's a different type of health experience. But I think it challenges you and it really shows you that you're much stronger than you thought you were. And then you realize what your purpose really is, and you stay focused on that. And right, that you have to make time for yourself, as well as, mental health, talking to a therapist, being open about it in our communities as well is very important. Because, we don't talk about these things and the stress builds up. So I know we had a lot of questions, and I apologize for the people that we didn't get, but this was just such a beautiful conversation, and I wanted to really honor what you had to say. But I would like for you to give us some final thoughts that you would like us to walk away with. And also, what's the most favorite thing what do you like the most about Latino Unity Day?
So I would say my advice to people is don't give up. Don't give up. I know that's very easy to say, and a lot of people have said it, but there's going to be obstacles that will be thrown at us all the time because we're minority, because we look different, we speak different languages. However, that is something that we should take in, as an empowerment, as an advantage to others, advantage to our job, and use those skills and never give up. And if someone doesn't provide you an opportunity, create your own opportunity. Bring your chair to the table. Don't wait for someone to bring you a chair. So make sure you're in those conversations. Make sure you're asking questions and getting involved. We need more people to be involved, more young people to be involved, and to speak to their friends and families and motivate them to get involved. And that's something that we really need. And I just hope that today was a little piece of a little sliver of just getting to know me, getting to know what I try and stand for my community, for my family, for myself, for others. Making sure that if there's anything that you guys have any questions about, feel free to reach out to me at all times. I'm here. I'm an open book. I was a scholarship recipient too of 2011 for the Latino Caucus Foundation. And I guess I'll end with what I'm very excited about Unity Day is overall just seeing all the Latinos coming together to Springfield and taking over Springfield. I think that's amazing to see. And I feel like I'm at home when I see all the families and the organizations come together to talk about policy and talk about just overall the work that we're doing for our communities, because I know we all are working different levels of government or different organizations, but we're all with the same goal, helping our community, making sure that we're represented and fighting for that policy that our families need. So I'm very excited to see all of them, see everyone, and to able to just have fun. We don't get a lot of opportunity to have fun in Springfield, so this is the one time of the year that we can bring our culture, bring our music, bring our food, and hang out with people. So that's what I'm excited for.
And I did see, because it's hard for me to see the chat, but there is a really good question. And David, if you're still on the call, can you please ask the question yourself?
Hi, thank you. I think initially the question was on policy and data, but I think also like I appreciate your perspective on mental health and self-care. So I really appreciate that perspective. So thank you for all your work. So my question was centered on Dreamers on the DACA and the recent ruling, right? That I think no longer like no DACA no longer prevents deportations, no. And so a lot of the data that's being pushed out there, non-policy and data, is centered on Latinos and how much Latinos pay in taxes, how much we contribute to the GDP. Is that argument effective in Springfield when talking with the other side, or is the argument on human rights and empathy, is that more effective in trying to persuade, politicians or senators to like pass the Dream Act or bills to protect immigrants?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. To be honest, I think the numbers, like I feel like some of my colleagues don't really see the numbers. Of course, some of them don't pay attention to the numbers at all, but I don't feel like it's a strong debate point for us. I feel like the human rights component is the number one issue that they have seen, like how people are being treated in the streets. And overall, like that's something that does resonate with them. And that's when they're like, okay, yeah, I don't like this either. Let's work on something. But when it comes to numbers and say like, hey, we're like one of the top ones that contribute to the state, or that Illinois is like the third export of corn to Mexico. Like they see that and I feel like that doesn't really make a difference for them. It doesn't make them move one way or another, which is unfortunate because I feel like they should.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for attending. And thank you, Representative Hernandez. Thank you for your honesty, your vulnerability, and your leadership. What we've heard today goes beyond policy. It is a reflection of lived experience, resilience, and the responsibility of public service to truly reflect the people it serves. Your story reminds us of strength, that strength is not only what we carry, but what we continue to build through service, even in the most difficult moments which you've encountered. To everyone who's joined us today, thank you for being part of this conversation. These spaces matter because they bring us closer. They make us realize that we're all human. To understanding, connection, and action, we encourage you to stay informed, stay connected, stay involved. We look forward to seeing you at our next charla en chismes con nuestros legisladores. And with that, I'll pass it back to Jesus to close it out.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you, Rep. Hernandez. Before we close, we invite everyone to follow us on social media and stay connected for all of our upcoming events, opportunities, and future Charlas y Chismes conversations. We also want to invite you to our next cafecito, so please make note. It's going to be the Cafecito Explore State of Illinois Careers and Advanced Latina Representation. So please mark your calendars for May 21st, 2026. That's a Thursday. 12:30 to 2 p.m., and it'll be virtual Zoom. You can join us at the Cafecito to learn more about the career opportunities with the state of Illinois, the pathways for advancement, and ongoing efforts to strengthen our Latina representation across all levels of government. It's free, open to everyone, and I hope to see you there. With that said, everyone have a great weekend. Stay safe. Enjoy the weather.